First, I would like to thank Celebrated Player for sending me this story. And for those of you who don't know, unless you are or were at this point, because we're not supposed to be watching the NFL, Indianapolis Colts fan, you should be familiar with this person. I wonder if my dad knows about him because when he was watching the NFL, he's a huge Colts fan. But this man's name is Bob Lamey, and he recently retired, or should I say resigned from his position as a radio announcer for the Colts, and I think for other avenues, because he used the N-word in front of a black colleague. Now I'm going to go ahead and read this article. I actually skimmed through it, but there's one part on here that actually made me want to stop for a minute because I thought it was actually funny, not in a good way, but it was kind of hilarious at the same time. It says, Bob Lamey, who has been the radio play-by-play announcer for the Indianapolis Colts for over 30 years, suddenly announced his retirement on Sunday. Yesterday, a report from 13 WTHR revealed the reason behind Lamey's unexpected departure. He said the N-word while telling a story to a black colleague. WTHR spoke to the colleague in question, who said Lamey used the slur while telling her a story off air last Tuesday. She said Lamey was telling her about when he used to work at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and was describing an interview with an unnamed person. Lamey told his colleague that this person was asked if any racers were holding back their speed during qualifications, to which the person replied, "There aren't any niggers in this race." Now, they said racers. They weren't talking about people like an ethnicity. They were talking about people who were driving in the cars and racing in that particular competition. And I don't know if it sounds to me like when he said that he was trying to be funny. Dear white people, trying to do something like that is not seen as a joke. It may be to you, but see, this stuff right here lets you know the kind of conversations they have when we're not around. Like the conversations that they have at their dinner table every single night. Hey, if they use that word amongst each other in the confinement of their home, which I know many of them do, that's on them. But when you step outside your house and you feel the need to say those kind of words around us and you get your ass bust, that's on you. It says Lamey's colleague told him that it wasn't appropriate for him to use that word in front of her. She told WTHR that Lamey immediately tried to apologize and prevent her from telling anyone about it. That was the part right there I said that I thought was kind of funny. He actually tried his best to apologize right on the spot and prevent her from telling anybody. I wonder if he threw any money her way to try to get her to stop, but apparently that didn't work because it all came out. She says he thought it was okay to use that type of language at work. He was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry if you're offended by this." Of course she's offended by it. It's not no if she is. I didn't mean to offend anyone, and I was like, I'm black, and I wouldn't ever say that word, and sort of just told him how it hurt me and how I don't think he should say it ever, even if he's telling a story, the radio employee said. Then once he saw my face and realized he had messed up, he had started really profusely apologizing. "Please don't tell anybody." When I left, he said it again. "Please don't tell anybody, don't mention this to anyone." I think he was apologizing so much because he knows it's wrong, and he knows that people lose their jobs for that. The next day, the employee told MS Communications HR department about the incident, and 4 days later, Lamey announced his retirement. Last night, Lamey's attorney released a statement acknowledging that Lamey had used an inappropriate word. It says, Bob Lamey, the former voice of the Colts, retired from the Indianapolis Colts on August 18th, following a career that spanned over 4 decades. Bob was not fired by the Colts, as some in the community have speculated. Bob has been in the sports broadcasting arena for almost 44 years and is 80 years old. Oh, he's 80! Oh, he's come straight out of the Jim Crow era. He was around before Jim Crow even started. It should be noted that Bob does want to acknowledge that while repeating a story while off the air last week to a friend at a local radio station, he used an inappropriate word that has been used in the story. Bob immediately apologized to the people involved for the comment and would hope that this error in judgment would not tarnish his long-held reputation in the sports community, where he has been known as an accurate and passionate reporter. A good lesson to take from this is that it's never a good idea to use racial slurs at work. Now watch, a lot of them white fans, they gonna get mad and say, well, he was just telling a story. Why should he be penalized for it if this is part of his story? Those are the same ones who got upset when James Gunn was forced to be fired from Marvel after talking about pedophilia and things of that nature. And speaking of James Gunn, I wasn't going to talk about this in another video because I said, oh, what's the point? I don't know if y'all had saw, but shortly after that, there was this picture that had arose where James Gunn had attended this pedophile themed party where the men were dressed like grown creepy ass men and the women were dressed like little girls. Some of y'all may have saw that. I said, and people are actually defending this. They did right to fire his ass. As a matter of fact, they should have fired him long before that. But anyway, back to this guy. He tried to apologize as much as he could. He tried his best to try to keep this under wraps. I applaud that woman for not holding on to this and not giving into his so-called apologies and telling the people immediately, because she could have held on to that for quite some time. So she was like, nah, that's not going to fly. And he probably thought because of her personality and that she was such an easygoing person that she wasn't going to flip out. And see, that's the way a lot of white people think about black people who are easygoing. They feel that they can talk to them any type of way or say certain things and that we won't flip out on their ass no matter how long we've known them. And another reason is because, unfortunately, a lot of black people have let a lot of white people get away with a lot of shit in the words that they say, especially that word. But she was like, nah, that's not going to fly. Not today. And they said he's 80. Like I said, he comes from before Jim Crow got started. He's older than Jim Crow by at least 20 some odd years. If you want to be technical, where if you want to talk about the true, like the Jim Crow South, he's older than it. So he comes from I wouldn't be surprised. The fact that he let that word just crawl out of his mouth that way lets you know he has these kind of conversations around other white people who think just like him. And that's how many of them are. And I don't need them to come up to me and tell me that they are. It's just something in my head that lets me know. That's why a lot of black people can't trust them. It's not that many black people don't like them. It's that they have proven throughout history that they cannot be trusted. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. The links will be down below. I will talk to you in the next one.